My name is Ida, and at 61 years old, I thought I had seen every side of human nature. I spent 35 years married to a wonderful man, raised a daughter, and built what I believed was a loving family. But last Christmas Day changed everything. My daughter threw red wine in my face in front of everyone, screaming that I had ruined her life. And as that wine dripped down my face, I smiled, because in that moment I knew exactly what I had to do. Before I tell you what happened next, I would love to know where you are watching from. If you have ever felt taken for granted by someone you love, go ahead and hit that like button. Subscribe to this channel because this story is about standing up for yourself, even when it breaks your heart. Now, let me take you back to how everything unraveled and why that moment of humiliation became my moment of freedom. I need to take you back to understand how we got here. My life was not always filled with this kind of pain. For most of my 61 years, I considered myself blessed. I grew up in a modest family in Boston, Massachusetts, where my parents taught me the value of hard work and kindness. When I was 26, I met George Thompson at a charity fundraiser. He was 30, charming, and had the most genuine laugh I had ever heard. He was an architect with big dreams, and I was a kindergarten teacher who loved working with children. We dated for 3 years before George proposed on a beach in Cape Cod. I can still remember how the sunset painted the sky orange and pink as he got down on one knee. We married in a small ceremony with close friends and family. Those early years were magical. George worked long hours building his architectural firm from the ground up, and I continued teaching until we decided to start a family. When our daughter Chloe was born, I was 29. George was over the moon. He painted her nursery himself, choosing soft lavender walls and hand-building a bookshelf shaped like a castle. I left my teaching job to stay home with her. It was a decision George and I made together. He wanted me to have the choice, and I wanted to be there for every moment of our daughter's childhood. Chloe was a beautiful baby with blonde curls and bright green eyes like her father. We gave her everything. Perhaps too much, though I did not see it that way at the time. George's firm became incredibly successful. By the time Chloe was in elementary school, we had moved to a large house in the suburbs that George designed himself. 5 bedrooms, a sprawling backyard, and a neighborhood full of families just like ours. Every summer, we vacationed at Cape Cod. George would rent the same cottage by the water, and we would spend 2 weeks swimming, building sandcastles, and eating lobster rolls. Chloe learned to ride a bike on those trips with George running behind her, one hand on the seat, shouting encouragement. Those memories felt so pure, so untouchable. When Chloe turned 16, George bought her a car, a brand new sedan safer than what most teenagers drove. I remember her squealing with delight, hugging her father so tight. George looked at me over her shoulder and winked. We wanted to give her the world. She went to private school, had piano lessons, tennis lessons, art classes. Whatever she wanted, we provided. She went to college in New York to study art and design. George paid her tuition in full every semester. $70,000 a year, and he never once complained. He was proud of her, proud that his daughter was pursuing her passion. I visited her often, bringing care packages and taking her out to nice dinners. She seemed happy, though looking back now, I wonder if I was seeing what I wanted to see, rather than what was really there. After college, Chloe struggled to find stable work in interior design. She would get freelance projects here and there, but nothing consistent. George helped her financially during those years. When she met Kyle at a gallery opening, I was relieved. He seemed stable, worked in real estate, and clearly adored my daughter. They married when Chloe was 26. George paid for the entire wedding. $50,000 for one day, but he smiled through every expense. 2 years later, Sophie was born, and my world expanded in the most beautiful way. Being a grandmother was everything I had dreamed it would be. Sophie had Chloe's blonde curls and my brown eyes. 3 years after that came Luke, a rambunctious little boy who reminded me so much of George. I spent countless hours with my grandchildren babysitting whenever Chloe needed me, which was often. Then 3 years ago, George died. It happened so suddenly that I still sometimes cannot believe he is gone. He had a heart attack while at his office reviewing blueprints for a new project. He was 68. One moment he was alive planning our next vacation, and the next he was gone. The grief nearly destroyed me, but George had been thorough in his planning. He left me everything: the house, which was worth $1.2 million, his investment portfolio carefully managed over decades, savings accounts, retirement funds. All told, I inherited approximately $4 million. It sounds like an enormous amount, and it is. But George and I had worked our entire lives for that security. Well, George had worked. I had raised our daughter and managed our home. That was my contribution, though I would later learn that not everyone saw it that way. After George died, I went through the motions of living. I attended grief counseling, leaned on my brother Frank and his wife Barbara, and found solace in my friendship with a woman named Judith, whom I met at a community center. Judith was 65, widowed herself, and understood my pain in ways others could not. She became my closest confidant. Chloe was devastated by her father's death, or at least she seemed to be. She cried at the funeral, held my hand during the burial, and for a few months we drew closer. She called me every day, checking on me. I thought grief had brought us together. I thought we would navigate this loss as a family. But 6 months after George died, things began to shift. Chloe started asking questions about the will. At first, they seemed innocent. She asked if everything was settled, if I needed help with paperwork. Then one afternoon, sitting in my kitchen over tea, she asked directly, "So, did Dad leave everything to you?" I nodded. "Yes, honey, he did. We had talked about it years ago. The understanding was that I would manage everything and eventually it would all go to you." She stirred her tea, not looking at me. "Eventually." "Yes, eventually. When I am gone." She smiled, but it did not reach her eyes. "Of course, Mom. I was just curious." That conversation planted the first seed of doubt in my mind, though I pushed it away. She was grieving, I told myself. Money was probably the last thing on her mind. But over the following months, Chloe began asking for financial help more frequently. First, she needed $15,000 to renovate their kitchen. Kyle's real estate business was slow, she explained, and they had been planning this renovation for years. I agreed, thinking it was a reasonable request. I wanted my daughter to have a nice home. Then a few months later, she asked for $8,000 for a family vacation. She said the kids needed a break, that everyone was still processing losing George. Again, I said yes. But then Kyle started making suggestions. He would call me something he rarely did and talk about investment opportunities. He had a friend with a real estate development project. He was sure I could triple my money if I just invested $200,000. I politely declined. I was not interested in risky investments. The money George left me was my security, and I was not about to gamble with it. Kyle did not take the rejection well. I could hear it in his voice, the way it cooled when I said no. After that call, Chloe became more distant. She stopped calling every day. When I would call her, she seemed distracted, always in a hurry to get off the phone. I missed my grandchildren terribly, but whenever I asked to see them, Chloe had an excuse. They were busy with school activities, or she had plans, or Kyle was working late and she needed to handle things alone. I felt the shift, but did not understand it. Not yet. 1 year after George's death, the requests escalated. Chloe called me on a Tuesday afternoon. I was in my garden tending to the roses George had planted years ago when my phone rang. "Mom, I need to talk to you about something important." I sat down on the garden bench, brushing dirt from my hands. "Of course, sweetheart. What is it?" "Kyle and I have been talking, and we think it would be nice to set up college funds for Sophie and Luke. You know how expensive education is getting." "That is a lovely idea," I said. "Are you starting to save for it?" "Well, actually, we were hoping you could set up the funds. $100,000 for each child. It would be such a relief for us, and it would honor Dad's legacy." $100,000 for each child. 200,000 total. I felt my breath catch. That was an enormous sum. "Chloe, that is a lot of money. Let me think about it." Her tone changed immediately. "Think about it, Mom. You have millions. Dad worked his whole life for that money. Don't you want to help your grandchildren?" The way she said it stung, as if I did not care about Sophie and Luke, as if my hesitation meant I was selfish. Of course I want to help them, but $200,000 is not a small amount even with what your father left me. I need to be careful. Careful? Her laugh was bitter. You are sitting on $4 million. What do you need to be careful about? I closed my eyes, trying to remain calm. Chloe, I loved your father more than anything. This money represents his life's work. I need to be responsible with it. Responsible, right. She paused. Well, think about it. But do not take too long. The kids are not getting any younger. She hung up before I could respond. I sat in the garden for a long time, after that, the phone still in my hand. Something felt wrong, but I could not quite name it. Was I being unreasonable? Should a grandmother not want to provide for her grandchildren's future? I called Judith that evening. We met for coffee the next morning, and I told her everything. Judith listened carefully, her hands wrapped around her mug. When I finished, she looked at me with kind but serious eyes. Ida, can I be honest with you? Please. It sounds like Chloe sees you as a bank account, not as her mother. The words hit me hard. I shook my head. No, she is just worried about her children's future. She is being a good mother. A good mother would not manipulate her own mother with guilt. Think about it. She did not ask if you could help save a little each year. She demanded $200,000 and made you feel bad for hesitating. I wanted to argue, but deep down I knew Judith was right. Still, she was my daughter, my only child. I loved her. After a few days of deliberation, I decided to compromise. I called Chloe and offered to set up a fund of $50,000 for each child, half of what she asked for, but still a substantial amount. She was not happy. I could hear it in the tight way she said, I guess that will have to do. No, thank you. No appreciation. Just barely concealed disappointment. That should have been my warning, but I pushed the feeling down, telling myself she was just stressed. Kyle's business was struggling. They had bills. I was being too sensitive. Then a few months later, something happened that shattered my illusions completely. I had driven over to Chloe's house unannounced, something I rarely did, but I had bought gifts for the kids and wanted to drop them off. When I arrived, I heard Chloe's voice from inside. The front door was slightly ajar and she was on the phone in the living room, her voice loud enough that I could hear every word. My mom is so cheap, Sarah. I swear she is sitting on millions and acts like she is broke. I froze on the doorstep, my hand still raised to knock. I mean, it is my dad's money. She did not earn it. She just stayed home and played housewife. She should be more generous, especially now that dad is gone. What else is she going to do with all that money? My vision blurred. I felt like I had been punched in the stomach. Is that what my daughter thought of me, that I had not earned anything? That raising her, managing our home, supporting George through every challenge of building his business, that none of that mattered? I backed away from the door, silently returned to my car, and drove home. I cried the entire way. Great heaving sobs that made it hard to see the road. I pulled over twice just to collect myself. When I got home, I sat in my living room and looked at the photos on the mantle. Chloe as a baby, Chloe on her first day of school, Chloe at her wedding, radiant in white George beaming beside her. Had I failed as a mother? Had I spoiled her so badly that she could not see me as anything more than a source of money? George had warned me once years ago when Chloe was in high school. She had demanded a designer handbag that cost over $1,000, and I had bought it for her birthday. George had pulled me aside later that night. We are spoiling her too much, Ida. She is our only child, I had said. We can afford to make her happy. There is a difference between making someone happy and teaching them that they can have anything they want without working for it. I had brushed off his concerns, but now, standing in my living room staring at those photos, I wished I had listened. A week after overhearing that phone conversation, Chloe called again. This time, she needed $12,000. Her car needed repairs, she said, and they had some credit card debt that was getting out of hand. Could I help? I had reached my limit. Chloe, we need to talk. Every time we speak, it is about money. I feel like that is all you see when you look at me now. There was a long silence. What are you talking about? I overheard you last week. When I came by to drop off gifts for the kids, you were on the phone. Another silence, this one heavier. What did you hear? You called me cheap. You said the money was not mine because I just stayed home. Chloe, do you have any idea how much that hurt? Well, it is true, is not it? Her voice turned defensive. Dad worked for that money. You just stayed home and took care of the house. I raised you. My voice shook. I took care of our family. That was my job, and your father valued it. He never once made me feel like my contribution was less important than his. Whatever, Mom. If you do not want to help your own daughter, fine. But do not act like you are some kind of martyr. She hung up. I stood there holding the phone, tears streaming down my face. My daughter, the little girl I had rocked to sleep, who I had nursed through illnesses and celebrated every achievement with, did not respect me. Worse, she did not even seem to love me. Not really. She loved what I could give her. After that conversation, Chloe did not contact me for a month. Not a single call, not a text, nothing. I missed Sophie and Luke desperately, but I refused to reach out first. I needed to see if my daughter would call me for any reason other than money. She did not. Thanksgiving was approaching, and normally I would have hosted. But given the state of things, I was not sure what to do. I mentioned it to Frank, my younger brother, when he called to check on me. Do not host if you do not want to, Ida. You do not owe anyone your peace of mind. But I missed my grandchildren too much. Against my better judgment, I called Chloe in mid-November. Hi, Mom. Her voice was cautious. Hello, sweetheart. I was calling about Thanksgiving. Would you and the family like to come over? There was a pause. I do not know, Mom. Things have been tense. I know, but it is Thanksgiving. The kids should be with their grandmother. Another pause. Okay, we will come, but can we not fight? I do not want to fight either, Chloe. I just want to have a nice holiday. Good, see you then. Thanksgiving Day arrived and I spent the morning cooking. Turkey mashed potatoes, stuffing, green bean casserole, cranberry sauce, pumpkin pie. All of Chloe's favorites from when she was young. I hoped the food might bridge the distance between us. Chloe, Kyle, Sophie, and Luke arrived around 2 in the afternoon. The kids ran to me immediately and I scooped them up, breathing in their little kid smell, feeling my heart both break and mend at the same time. Grandma, we missed you, Sophie said, her small arms around my neck. I missed you too, sweetheart. More than you know. Kyle barely looked at me. He gave a stiff nod and went straight to the living room, turning on the television. Chloe kissed my cheek, but it felt perfunctory. Still, I tried to be hopeful. Dinner was tense. The kids chattered away, oblivious to the undercurrents, but the adults barely spoke. I asked Chloe about her design work. She gave one-word answers. I asked Kyle about his real estate projects. He shrugged and said business was tough. Then, halfway through the meal, Kyle put down his fork and looked at me. Ida, I wanted to follow up on that investment opportunity I mentioned a while back. My stomach dropped. Kyle, I told you I was not interested. I know, but hear me out. My partner just secured a prime location for a commercial development. We need $200,000 in capital to move forward. Within a year, you could see returns of 30 to 40%. It is a sure thing. There is no such thing as a sure thing in real estate, Kyle. I appreciate the offer, but my answer is still no. His jaw tightened. You know it is hard to watch you sit on all that money while your family struggles. Struggles. I set down my own fork. You live in a beautiful home. You drive new cars. Your children go to good schools. What exactly are you struggling with? Chloe jumped in. Mom, do not be like this. Kyle is trying to include you in something good. We could all benefit. I am not interested in benefiting from risky investments. Your father worked too hard for me to gamble his money away. His money? Kyle muttered. Right. I stood up, my hands shaking. I think maybe we should end this meal early. I am not feeling well. Chloe stood too. Fine, Mom, we will go. But do not expect us to come running back when you decide you want to see your grandchildren. Those words cut deep. She was using Sophie and Luke as leverage, as pawns in whatever game she thought we were playing. Chloe, I have never kept you from seeing me. You are the one who only calls when you want money. That is not true. Is not it? When was the last time you called just to see how I was doing? When was the last time you asked about my life? She grabbed her purse. Come on, Kyle, get the kids, we are leaving. Sophie started crying. But Grandma made pie. We will get pie somewhere else, Chloe snapped. I watched them leave, Luke clutching a stuffed animal I had bought him, looking back at me with confused eyes. After they drove away, I sat at my dining room table surrounded by plates of uneaten food and cried. That night, I could not sleep. I kept replaying everything, trying to understand where it had all gone wrong. The next morning, I called Judith. I think I need to make some changes, I told her. Legal changes. What kind of changes? To my will, I need to see a lawyer. I had been working with the same estate attorney, Mr. Patterson, for over 15 years. He was the one who had helped George and me set up our wills initially. 3 days after Thanksgiving, I sat in his office, the smell of old books and leather filling the space. Mrs. Thompson, it is good to see you, though I sense this is not a social visit. I shook my head. No, Mr. Patterson, I need to make changes to my will. He pulled out a legal pad. All right, what changes would you like to make? I took a deep breath. In my current will, everything goes to my daughter, Chloe. I want to change that. He looked up, his expression carefully neutral. I see. Can you tell me what you have in mind? I want to split my estate, half for Chloe and half for various charities, organizations that help children, education funds, things like that. Mr. Patterson made notes. That is certainly your right, Ms. Thompson. May I ask what prompted this decision? I told him everything. The constant requests for money, the phone conversation I had overheard, the Thanksgiving disaster. By the time I finished, Mr. Patterson was leaning back in his chair, nodding slowly. Mrs. Thompson, I have been doing this for 30 years. What you are describing is unfortunately not uncommon. When there is significant wealth involved, family dynamics can become very complicated. I just want her to understand that I am not an ATM. I am her mother. Reducing her inheritance may send that message, but I want to make sure you are thinking this through. These decisions should not be made in anger. I am not angry, Mr. Patterson. I am heartbroken, but I am also clear-headed. My daughter needs to learn that love and money are not the same thing. He nodded. All right, I will draft the amendments. You will have time to review everything before signing. A week later, I returned and signed the new will. 50% to Chloe, 50% divided among several charities focused on children's education and welfare. As I signed my name, I felt a strange mixture of sadness and relief. But even that was not enough to prepare me for what would happen next. December arrived, and with it plans for Christmas. Despite everything, I wanted to try one more time. I wanted to give Chloe a chance to show me that our relationship mattered more than money. I called her in mid-December. Chloe, I would like to host Christmas dinner. Would you and the family come? She hesitated. I do not know, Mom. After Thanksgiving. Please, it is Christmas. Let's try to be a family. Fine, we will come. But I am not making any promises about how it will go. I also invited Frank and Barbara, Judith, and my neighbors Harold and Patricia. I wanted a full house filled with warmth and laughter. Maybe having others around would keep things civil. The week before Christmas, my phone rang. It was Kyle. Ida, we need to talk. The use of my first name instead of calling me Mom felt like a slap. About what, Kyle? Your estate planning. Chloe and I have been talking to a financial advisor, and frankly, it does not make sense for you to hold on to all those assets. Chloe is your only heir. She should inherit everything. My hands tightened around the phone. This is my money, Kyle. I will decide what to do with it. We are planning our future based on certain expectations, Ida. Chloe deserves that inheritance. George would have wanted her to have it. George wanted me to be taken care of, and he trusted me to make the right decisions, which I am doing. Well, his voice turned cold. You should know that if you do not do right by Chloe, there will be consequences. Are you threatening me? I am just stating facts. We will see you at Christmas. He hung up. I sat there, my heart pounding. They were planning their future based on my death. Based on money that was not even theirs yet. The realization made me feel sick. I called Mr. Patterson again. Can I make another change to my will right away? Of course, Mrs. Thompson. What would you like to do? I want to remove Chloe entirely. Set up trust funds for my grandchildren that they can access for education only, not until they are 25. Everything else goes to charity and my brother. There was a pause. Mrs. Thompson, this is a significant change. Are you certain? I have never been more certain of anything. My daughter and her husband just made it very clear that they are counting on my death to fund their lifestyle. I will not reward that. All right, I will have the documents ready by tomorrow. Can you come in the day after Christmas? Actually, can I come in on the 27th? I want to get through the holiday first. Of course. Christmas morning arrived cold and bright. I had been up since 5 preparing. Turkey in the oven, potatoes, peeled pies baked the night before. The house looked beautiful. I had decorated every room with garlands and lights. The tree sparkled in the corner presents underneath for Sophie and Luke. Guests started arriving around 2. Frank and Barbara came first, bringing wine and hugs. Harold and Patricia followed with a beautiful poinsettia. Judith arrived and immediately went to the kitchen to help me. "How are you holding up?" she asked quietly. "I am nervous. I do not know how this is going to go." "Whatever happens, we are here." At 3, Chloe, Kyle, Sophie, and Luke arrived. The children ran in excited about the tree and presents. Chloe and Kyle entered slowly, both of their faces tight. Dinner went surprisingly smoothly at first. Everyone was making an effort to be pleasant. The food was delicious and people complimented my cooking. Sophie and Luke told stories about school. Frank made jokes that got everyone laughing. For a little while, I let myself hope that maybe things would be okay. After the main course, we moved into the living room for dessert and coffee. That is when the atmosphere began to shift. Chloe had been drinking wine steadily throughout the evening. Her cheeks were flushed, her movements loose. Kyle was also on his 4th or 5th glass. I was serving pie when Chloe suddenly stood up, her wine glass in hand. "I want to make a toast." Everyone turned to look at her. Something in her tone made me uneasy. "To my mother," she said, her voice loud, "who sits on millions of dollars that my father worked his entire life to earn." The room went silent. Frank set down his fork. Barbara looked alarmed. "Chloe," I said quietly, "this is not the time." "When is the time, Mom?" "You refuse to help your own daughter. You refuse to invest in opportunities that could help all of us. You are selfish." I stood up, my hands shaking. "Chloe, please, stop this, not in front of everyone." "Why not everyone should know what kind of person you really are? You hoard money while your daughter and grandchildren struggle." Kyle stood beside her, not stopping her, actually encouraging her with his silence. Harold cleared his throat. "Chloe, perhaps we should all calm down." "Stay out of this," she snapped at him, then turned back to me. "You know what Dad would say if he could see you now? He would be ashamed." Those words broke something in me. Do not you dare use your father against me. He loved me, he trusted me, and he would be heartbroken to see what you have become. What I have become. Her laugh was ugly. "I am trying to take care of my family, but you just want to play the martyr. Poor Ida the widow with all the money and no one to share it with." I felt tears prick my eyes. Sophie and Luke were watching, their faces scared. This was exactly what I had wanted to avoid. "Chloe, I have given you so much. I set up funds for your children. I have helped you financially more times than I can count. But it is never enough, is it? Because you could do so much more. Kyle had an opportunity that could have changed our lives, but you said no. You are selfish, Mom. You have always been selfish. That is not fair. Is not it?" She stepped closer to me. "You stayed home your whole life while Dad worked himself to exhaustion. You did not earn that money. He did. And now you act like it is all yours." Frank stood up. "Chloe, that is enough. Your mother dedicated her life to raising you." "Oh, please. She had it easy. Stayed home, went to lunches, played tennis. Meanwhile, Dad built an empire." I felt like I was being flayed alive. Every word was a knife. "Chloe, I am begging you, stop." "You want me to stop, fine. But first, I am going to tell you exactly what I think. You ruined everything. This whole family. Dad's memory, everything." Her voice had risen to a shout. Luke started crying. Barbara quickly took both children out of the room. Kyle still said nothing, just stood there with his arms crossed. "I have ruined everything." I could barely get the words out. "I have spent my whole life loving you, supporting you, giving you everything I could. And this is what I get in return. Love. She laughed bitterly. You do not know what love is. Love is helping when someone needs you, but you only care about yourself. I tried to steady myself. Chloe, you are drunk and you are upset. Please let's talk about this tomorrow when you are calm. I am perfectly calm, she screamed, and I am done with your excuses. In that moment, I saw something in her eyes. Pure rage. Hatred, even. My own daughter looked at me like I was her enemy. You need to leave, I said quietly. Right now. Oh, I will leave, but first. She lifted her wine glass. Time seemed to slow down. I saw her hand move, saw the red liquid arc through the air, and then I felt it. Cold wine hitting my face, my hair running down my white blouse. The glass fell to the floor and shattered. Total silence. I stood there, wine dripping from my chin, staining my clothes. Everyone in the room was frozen, staring in horror. Sophie was crying somewhere in another room. Luke's sobs echoed down the hall. Chloe stood in front of me, chest heaving, her face twisted with anger. And I smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who finally completely understands. The smile of clarity. You just made the biggest mistake of your life, I said quietly. Kyle grabbed Chloe's arm. We should go. Yes, I said, my voice steady despite the wine running down my face. You should. Judith rushed over with napkins, but I held up my hand. I wanted everyone to see this. I wanted them to witness what my daughter had done. Chloe and Kyle rushed toward the door. I heard them gathering. Sophie and Luke heard my grandchildren crying for me, but I did not move. I stood in my living room, covered in wine, surrounded by shocked friends and family, and felt something crystallize inside me. Frank came to my side. Ida, I am fine, I said, and I meant it. I was fine. For the first time in years, I knew exactly what I needed to do. After they left, Judith helped me clean up. Frank wanted to call Chloe and give her a piece of his mind, but I stopped him. No, this is between me and her now. I went upstairs, took a long shower, washing the wine from my hair and skin. When I came back down in clean clothes, my guests were cleaning up the living room. The broken wine glass had been swept up. The stains on the carpet would need professional cleaning, but I did not care. I am so sorry you all had to witness that, I said. Harold shook his head. You have nothing to apologize for, Ida. That was unconscionable. Patricia hugged me. Are you going to be all right? Yes, I really am. After everyone left except Judith, I made myself a cup of tea. We sat in the kitchen and I felt strangely calm. What are you going to do? Judith asked. I am going to call Mr. Patterson tonight, even though it is Christmas. And I'm going to remove Chloe from my will entirely. Everything. Judith reached across the table and took my hand. I support whatever you decide. But are you sure this is not something you can easily undo? I am absolutely sure. She showed me tonight who she really is. And I believe her. I called Mr. Patterson and left a message on his emergency line. He called back within an hour. Mrs. Thompson, is everything all right? No, Mr. Patterson, it is not. I need to make that change we discussed. Removing Chloe completely. Can we meet tomorrow? Tomorrow is the day after Christmas. I know. I will pay you double your rate. I need this done immediately. He heard something in my voice that made him agree. I will meet you at my office at 10 tomorrow morning. I will have everything ready. That night, I barely slept. Not because I was upset, but because I felt wired with purpose. When morning came, I dressed carefully, putting on my best suit. I drove to Mr. Patterson's office with the sunrise painting the sky pink. The new will was ready when I arrived. Mr. Patterson walked me through every detail. Your estate will be divided as follows: $2 million in trust for Sophie Thompson and Luke Thompson to be used solely for educational expenses, accessible when they turn 25. $1 million to your brother, Frank Morrison. The remaining assets, approximately $1 million after estate taxes, to be divided equally among the following charities. He listed several organizations I had researched. children's hospitals, scholarship funds, literacy programs. Nothing to Chloe. Nothing to Chloe Thompson Brennan. That is correct. I picked up the pen. My hand did not shake. I signed my name clearly. There is one more thing, I said. I want to send Chloe a letter informing her of this change. Can you draft something formal? I can. But Mrs. Thompson, you might want to consider the implications. This will likely end your relationship with your daughter. Mr. Patterson, she ended our relationship when she threw wine in my face on Christmas Day. I am just making it official. He nodded and drafted a brief formal letter. It stated simply that I had made changes to my will, that Chloe was no longer a beneficiary, and that her children had protected funds for education. It was cold, legal, and final. I will mail this certified so she has to sign for it, he said. Perfect. I left his office feeling lighter than I had in years. That afternoon, my phone rang. Chloe. I let it go to voicemail. She called again. And again. Finally, I answered. Mom. Her voice was thick, like she had been crying. Mom, I am so sorry. I do not know what happened last night. The wine, the stress, I just snapped. Please, can we talk? It is too late, Chloe. What do you mean it is too late? I am apologizing. I have made changes to my will. You are no longer a beneficiary. Silence. Then what? I have removed you completely. Sophie and Luke have trust funds for their education. Everything else goes to charity and your Uncle Frank. You cannot do that. Her voice turned shrill. That money is mine. No, Chloe, it was never yours. It is my money, and I decide what happens to it. I will fight this. I will get a lawyer. You are welcome to try, but Mr. Patterson assures me everything is legally sound. I am of sound mind, and I have made my wishes clear. This is because of last night, Mom. I was drunk. I did not mean it. Yes, you did. You meant every word. And even if you did not, it showed me the truth. You do not love me, Chloe. You love my money. And I will not spend the rest of my life being used by my own daughter. Please. Now she was crying. Please, Mom. We can work this out. I will do better. I promise. I do not believe you. You have had countless chances to do better, and you have only gotten worse. This is my final decision. If you do this, you will never see Sophie and Luke again. I will make sure of it. And there it was, the real Chloe. When she could not manipulate me with tears, she went for threats. Then that is your choice, I said, my voice steady. But know this, when Sophie and Luke turn 25, they will have access to their trust funds, and they will have a letter from me explaining why I set things up the way I did. They will know the truth. You are destroying this family. No, Chloe. You did that all on your own. Goodbye. I hung up. She called back immediately. I blocked her number. 2 days later, the certified letter was delivered. I tracked it online and saw when Chloe signed for it. Within an hour, Kyle called from his number. I did not answer. He left a voicemail threatening to sue me, calling me every name he could think of. I saved the voicemail and forwarded it to Mr. Patterson as documentation of harassment. Frank called that evening. Chloe contacted me. She is furious. I imagine she is. She wanted me to talk to you to convince you to change your mind. And I told her that she made her bed. Ida, I am proud of you. It takes real strength to do what you did. Thank you, Frank. That means a lot. Over the next few weeks, I received several more calls from numbers I did not recognize. Probably Kyle or Chloe trying different phones. I blocked them all. I changed my email address and made my social media accounts private. I did grieve, though. I grieved for the daughter I thought I had. I grieved for the relationship that could have been. I grieved for Sophie and Luke, knowing I might not see them grow up. But I did not grieve for my decision. That I knew was right. It has been 2 months since that Christmas day. 2 months since wine ran down my face in front of everyone I care about. 2 months since I permanently removed my daughter from my will. People ask me if I regret it. The answer is no. Not even a little bit. I have found peace in my decision. I volunteer 3 days a week at a children's literacy center, reading to kids who remind me why education matters so much. I have donated to causes that George would have supported. I have taken care of myself in ways I never did when I was constantly worried about Chloe's next request. Judith and I took that cruise we had talked about. 2 weeks in the Caribbean, just us and the ocean. It was glorious. I read books, watched sunsets, danced to live music. I remembered what it felt like to be Ida, not just someone's mother or someone's wallet. Frank and Barbara have been wonderful. We have dinner together every week. Frank reminds me sometimes of George, the same steady presence, the same dry humor. Having him in my will feels right. He has always been there for me, never asking for anything, just offering support. I think about Sophie and Luke every day. I miss them terribly. But I know that the trust funds I set up will give them opportunities. When they turn 25, they will have money for graduate school, for starting businesses, for building their futures. And they will have my letters explaining that their grandmother loved them enough to protect them from their parents' greed. I have also learned something important about myself. For so many years, I defined myself through other people, through George, through Chloe, through my grandchildren. I was a wife, a mother, a grandmother. But I forgot to be Ida. Now I am learning who Ida is. She is a woman who loves reading mysteries, who has taken up watercolor painting and is actually not terrible at it, who laughs loudly at comedy shows and cries during sappy movies, who can set boundaries and stick to them, even when it breaks her heart. I joined a book club last month, made some new friends who do not know about my money or my family drama. They just know me as Ida, the woman who always brings homemade cookies to meetings and has strong opinions about character development. The house feels different now, quieter, but in a good way. I have redecorated George's office, turning it into an art studio. I play music as loud as I want. I eat dinner at 9 p.m. if I feel like it. I have claimed my space and my life. Mr. Patterson called last week to tell me that Chloe did consult with a lawyer about contesting the will, but after reviewing the case, the lawyer advised her she had no grounds. I am of sound mind, I was not under duress, and I have the right to distribute my assets however I choose. I will not lie and say it does not hurt. There are moments when I see a grandmother with her grandchildren at the park and I feel a physical ache in my chest. There are nights when I look at old photos of Chloe as a little girl and I wonder where that sweet child went. But then I remember her face on Christmas Day, the hatred in her eyes, the wine dripping down my clothes, and I know I made the right choice. George used to say that the hardest decisions are usually the right ones. I did not understand what he meant back then. I do now. Sometimes love means letting go. Sometimes it means protecting yourself from the people who are supposed to love you most. Sometimes it means choosing your own peace over keeping everyone else happy. That glass of wine in my face was the wake-up call I needed. It showed me that love should not come with a price tag, that family should not feel like extortion, and that I deserve better than to be treated as an ATM by my own child. I am 61 years old, and for the first time in my adult life, I am living for myself. I am making choices based on what I want, not what others expect of me. I am spending my money on things that matter to me, supporting causes I believe in, helping people who genuinely need it. And you know what? It feels absolutely right. So if you are out there struggling with a relationship that takes more than it gives, whether it is with a child, a partner, a friend, I want you to know something. You have the right to set boundaries. You have the right to protect yourself. You have the right to say no, even to people you love. Love should not hurt this much. It should not come with conditions and demands. Real love respects boundaries. Real love does not use guilt as a weapon. I learned that lesson too late with Chloe, but it is not too late for me to live the rest of my life with dignity and peace. That Christmas Day, covered in wine, humiliated in front of my loved ones, I smiled because I finally saw clearly. And that clarity gave me freedom. I do not know what the future holds. Maybe someday Chloe will genuinely change. Maybe when Sophie and Luke are older, we will have a relationship. Maybe not. Either way, I will be okay. Because I have learned the most important lesson of all. I am enough just as I am. And my worth is not measured by what I can give others. It is measured by how I treat myself, how I honor the life George and I built, and how I choose to spend my remaining years. I choose peace. I choose dignity. I choose myself. And that smile, the one I gave my daughter as wine, dripped down my face. That was the smile of a woman who just found her strength. The smile of someone who finally understood that she deserved better. The smile of freedom. I have never stopped smiling since. Now I would love to hear from you. Have you ever had to make a difficult decision about family and money? Have you ever had to set boundaries with someone you love even though it broke your heart? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your story might help someone else who is facing a similar situation. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button. It helps others find this message. Subscribe to this channel for more real stories about life, family, and finding strength in difficult moments. And share this video with someone who might need to hear that it is okay to choose themselves. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here. I hope that wherever you are in your own journey, you find the courage to stand up for yourself and the peace that comes with making the hard but right decisions. May you always know your worth. May you never let anyone treat you as less than you are, and may you find the strength to smile even in your darkest moments. Because sometimes that smile is the beginning of everything changing. Take care of yourselves. You deserve it.